Discover the divine truth behind your pain. 7 miraculous ways God's plan transforms your suffering. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, a time marked by uncertainty and instability for the people of Israel, a young man named Mephibosheth found himself in a land shrouded in despair, Lodabar. The dust of this desolate place covered him like shame, a fitting cloak for one who bore the weight of a legacy tainted by the reign of King Saul. He was the son of Jonathan, a man steeped in the loyalty of divine friendship. Yet Mephibosheth had spent years crippled in both feet, a tragic consequence of a fall that echoed through generations, leaving his spirit limping along with his body. As whispers of King David's rising glory surged through the streets, Mephibosheth remained hidden, convinced the king's ascension would usher in his demise. The fragrance of victory that wafted from Jerusalem felt like poison, stirring fears deep within him. He recalled the laughter that once danced through the grand palace halls, dreams woven with hopes of honor, now dashed against the rocky cliffs of his isolation. What if he seeks my life, he pondered, the shadows of self-imposed exile clinging to him tightly, drawing deeper a wound that ran far beyond skin. But amid the peril of his thoughts, a sovereign pursuit unfolded. King David in his heart bore the weighty covenant made with Jonathan, an oath that transcended death and aimed to show kindness to any remnants of Saul's house. In his court he summoned his men with palpable urgency. Is there anyone left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? The question resonated with fidelity and hope, reflecting a divine tapestry aiming to mend the torn fabric of their past. Mephibosheth's heart sank as he caught wind of their approach. Fear surged through him at the sound of shuffling boots, each step representing a harbinger of doom. "Am I destined to meet my end today?" he murmured, the bitter taste of despair washing over him. As the guards finally escorted him to the radiant palace, the air thickened with dread. He gripped his crutches like a lifeline, moving painfully toward a new chapter of uncertainty. That glorious sunlight, a symbol of his past promise, now seemed an unbearable burden. Yet as he reached the king's presence, words both astonished and softened his spirit. "Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness." Could this truly be? Mephibosheth, trembling, replied, "Who am I that you would show regard for a dead dog such as I?" The potent contrast of his lowliness against David's gracious intent left him breathless, stirring within him the flickering flame of hope. In that single moment, God's purpose emerged from the shadows, unveiling the transformative power of grace, inviting him to the king's table. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories.
Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Mephibosheth took his place at the table, he grappled with looming questions. How could God restore him after years of suffering? The rich aromas enveloping him held the promise of nourishment, yet his spirit wrestled between the familiar chains of doubt and the exhilarating possibilities of a new beginning. Would this truly be a banquet of redemption, an opportunity for healing woven into the fabric of royal hospitality, or was it merely the calm before the storm of greater trials ahead? The table awaited, set for more than just a meal, a divine orchestration that beckoned him to step into a destiny he had long since believed was lost forever. As the feast commenced, laughter and conversation echoed throughout the halls of the palace, yet for Mephibosheth, silence gripped his heart. He sat at the table, the beauty and grandeur surrounding him starkly contrasting his condition, his spirit torn between joy and deep-seated fear. David, with eyes that radiated kindness, spoke to his servants, ensuring all in attendance understood the significance of his actions. They were not merely sharing a meal, they were partaking in a covenant renewed. "Let it be known," David proclaimed, "that Mephibosheth shall eat at my table like one of the king's sons." The proclamation, like balm to a festering wound, seeped into Mephibosheth's heart. There at the king's table, surrounded by those who once would have regarded him as a forgotten remnant, he experienced a moment of divine intimacy. "Thy servant is but a dead dog," he responded humbly, yet the warmth of belonging flooded him, washing away years of shame. David's countenance did not waver, for he understood the depth of the pain carried by the son of Jonathan. It was a divine intersection where hope met grace, igniting a spark of life in the heart of one who had deemed himself unworthy. Later that evening, as twilight kissed the edges of the horizon, David summoned Ziba, the servant of Saul's household.
"I wish to inquire of the land of Saul," he commanded, the authority of his voice juxtaposed with a tenderness in his intent. "Tell me of all the properties that belong to Jonathan, that I might restore them to Mephibosheth." Ziba, trembling before the king, replied, "All that belong to Saul and his house I shall make ready for your servant." His words rang true, resonating like a distant echo of God's promises fulfilled. The plan unfolded that evening, marked in the hearts of all present.
Mephibosheth, the once crippled son of Jonathan, was to inherit lands lost to betrayal and violence. How profound the grace that lifted him from obscurity to prominence in both position and heart. Every word exchanged that night breathed life into a barren spirit, illuminating the path laid out by the providence of God. As the evening waned, the king leaned closer to Mephibosheth and whispered, "You are not merely a guest at my table, you are a part of my family now." The weight of those words encapsulated the promise of a new beginning, where kindness had triumphed over judgment and mercy had overshadowed pain. But even as joy began to take root, a shadow loomed beyond the palace walls. The throne of Israel was vulnerable, alliances tenuous. The murmurs of discontent spread like wildfire across the land. Jealousy would rear its head, and Mephibosheth was now a visible reminder of the past sins of a fallen kingdom. Unbeknownst to him, the divine plan was still unfolding, meticulously woven through the fabric of history. It beckoned his heart. What he could not foresee was the trials that awaited him, nor the strength he would find through faith. The story was far from over. In this moment of grace, Mephibosheth's spirit ignited with hope, yet a question lingered in the silence. Would he remain faithful to the king amidst the tempest, or would fear return to reclaim its throne? The hand of God, ever guiding, was about to unveil the next chapter of his sovereign purpose. What would soon emerge from the shadows of trial would reveal a depth of restoration that even the mightiest could not fathom. As dawn broke upon the city of Jerusalem, a radiant light filtered through the windows of the palace, heralding a new day. Yet within, Mephibosheth, though blessed with royal favor, bore the weight of uncertainty upon his heart. The laughter and joy of the feast now seemed a distant memory, for beneath the skin of restoration lay the unsettling truth of his lineage's past. The whispers of discontent had indeed spread, piercing the very fabric of David's reign. Rival factions began to murmur, with words sharp as daggers, sowing seeds of doubt and division among the people. "Is this not the son of Jonathan, a remnant of Saul's house?" they would say, their voices laced with disdain. The promise of a future, once bright and secure, now appeared like a flicker of light on the edge of night, vulnerable and slipping away. One afternoon, Ziba came to Mephibosheth with grave news. "My lord," he spoke with urgency, his gaze darting nervously, "Absalom, thy father's son, has taken counsel and is raising his hand against the king. His heart has turned toward the throne, and the people are swayed by his words." Mephibosheth's heart quaked as the implication struck him. Absalom's insurrection was not just a political upheaval, it was deeply personal. If David were to fall, what would become of him?
The very lands, the king's favor, even the table at which he dined, everything hung by a fragile thread. Would he again be cast aside, like a forgotten relic from the days of Saul? In the depths of his turmoil, he reflected on the words of David, the promise enveloping him like a mantle. "You are part of my family now." Could that promise withstand the storms that brewed on the horizon? He had gained a seat at the table, yet could he stand firm in identity when the tremors of betrayal shook the kingdom? In his heartache, Mephibosheth turned to the God of his father, Jonathan. "O Lord," he cried in silence, "your plans are higher than mine. In my fear, remind me of your steadfastness. I cling to the hope that cannot be moved, for I cannot see the way, but trust that you do." As the days rolled into weeks, David's loyal men gathered to protect the throne. Among them was Abishai, who spoke boldly, "Let us hunt down Absalom and put an end to this rebellion." But David, loving his son despite the treachery, replied, "O godly men, let none of you harm Absalom, for he is my flesh." Meanwhile, Mephibosheth witnessed the unfolding events from the shadows. Day by day, whispers of loyalty and betrayal echoed through the halls of the palace. His heart clung to the fragile thread of hope, for David's very response to Absalom mirrored the grace that had once rested upon him.
Perhaps this trial was not merely a test of David's kingship, but also a chance for Mephibosheth to step into the full measure of grace he had received. God's plan could weave beauty from the ashes, and even now he might be fashioning a testimony of faith and endurance in the heart of the once forgotten. Yet questions loomed over the horizon. Would Absalom's rebellion complete the cycle of despair? In his moments of solitude, Mephibosheth pondered the deeper truth of God's sovereign hand upon history. What vision awaited him in the shadows? For every tale of suffering bore the echo of divine redemption. Amidst tumult and turmoil, the stage was being set not only for David, but for Mephibosheth, whose legacy was intertwined with the faithful journey ahead. The experience of pain would beckon forth a revelation, a turning point towards divine restoration that would soon unfurl with glorious consequence. Soon, the heart of the story would reach a climax, the time drawing near for God's sovereign purpose to be revealed. What awaited the son of Jonathan remained veiled, yet certain. It would be a testament to God's faithfulness that even the fiercest storms of life could not obscure. As the shadows lengthened upon Jerusalem, the air thickened with tension and the murmur of darkened hearts. The city, once a crown jewel under David's reign, now stood as a precarious vessel afloat upon the waves of discord. News arrived with each passing hour, laden with anxiety and urgency, tightening the grip of uncertainty around Mephibosheth's heart.
During this time of turmoil, Ahithophel, once the wise counselor of King David, turned his allegiance to Absalom. He brought forth strategies cunning and treacherous, enticing the son of David to act with the impetus of a storm. "Let us take swift measure against your father," he advised, his voice dripping with the poison of ambition. "Strike while the king is weary and his followers scattered." These words splashed like a cold tide over Mephibosheth, piercing the heart of hope. Soon the reality of betrayal swept through the court like wildfire. The whispers transformed into clamors, igniting fears in the souls of David's loyalists. For every soul aligned with Absalom appeared to echo the doubts that gnawed at Mephibosheth's spirit. Yet within the frailty of his human apprehension, a flame refused to be quenched, the flame of remembrance. "O Lord, my heart is troubled," he cried in the quietude of despair. "Shall your promises forsake those whom you have called forth? For I am but a vessel bearing scars, yet cherished in your sight." His lips trembled, yet faith stood resolute, wrestling in the divine engagement unfolding in silence. As the plot thickened and loyalties were tested, David received the harrowing news of Absalom's advances. Torn between the love for his son and the responsibility of his throne, the king mourned deeply, exclaiming, "O Absalom, my son, would God I had died for thee." His heart poured forth, revealing the weight of both paternal love and kingdom accountability. In these moments, God's grip upon history seemed more profound than the rising tides. Could it be that the strife unfolding might reveal a greater purpose? Could Mephibosheth find himself yet again under the sovereign umbrella of grace rather than caught in the chaos? Each day Mephibosheth yearned for a glimmer, a whisper from the Almighty, to affirm his standing. Yet amid the tumult, the promise of God brewed beneath the surface. Something greater was being molded. An experience of divine revelation awaited every heart willing to perceive it. Mephibosheth recalled stories of Job, who found himself in despair, yet emerged with a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. Indeed, the path through the storm often led to the shores of profound renewal. As Absalom and his forces marched forth, Mephibosheth resolved within himself to await the outcome. He would not be swept away by the currents of rebellion, but recalled David's love, the love that had embraced him amid his past pain. Even in the face of impending disaster, he delineated the heart of God. Then God, in his infinite sovereignty, prepared to take the narrative in a direction unforeseen. Unbeknownst to Mephibosheth, the divine hand orchestrating the events led to his own prophetic fulfillment, a redemption beyond earthly perspective, rooted in the lineage of David, the swells of heaven preparing to unveil a legacy interwoven with grace and covenant promise.
For in every season of suffering endured, there lay the fertile ground from which hope would spring forth again. What awaited Mephibosheth would soon manifest as a testament of God's intentions, revealing that through each trial dwelled the latent seeds of divine opportunity, yielding fruit beyond the visible horizon. What would arise from this tempest? Only the unfolding tapestry of God's perfect will, shrouded in mystery, yet illuminating the promise that even in chaos he reigns sovereign. As the anticipation thickened over the city of Jerusalem, Absalom's forces gathered, emboldened by the treachery of Ahithophel. The fires of rebellion crackled with fervor, and the hearts of the people beat in synchrony with the frenzied pulse of a nation divided. Unbeknownst to Mephibosheth, who lingered in the shadows, a storm was brewing on the horizon, heralding the clash of loyalties and the scrutiny of divine purpose. In a darkened chamber, David sought the counsel of his remaining loyalists. "What shall we do?" he pondered aloud. The weight of the crown pressed heavily upon his brow, and his eyes reflected the turmoil within. "Though Absalom seeks my life, I am still a father. Should I flee or stand my ground?" The men surrounding him, seasoned warriors and faithful aides, exchanged glances filled with both determination and despair. Jonathan, the son of Abiathar, rose and spoke with resolve. "Let us take heed, O king, for the Lord is our refuge. We must rally together and fortify the gates of our hearts, trusting in his deliverance." Meanwhile, through the mist of uncertainty, Mephibosheth could hear the faintest echoes of conflict draw nearer, awakening memories of the past. His spirit stirred as he recalled the unyielding love of David, a love embedded in covenant promises and enduring grace. "In this storm, my identity is not lost," he whispered fervently, "for my hope rests not in the shifting sands of men, but in the faithfulness of Yahweh." As night fell, a restless dark enveloped the city, but faith flickered like the stars above. Mephibosheth prayed earnestly, seeking clarity amid confusion. "O Lord, speak your truth into my heart. Show me the path through this shadow, that I may discern your will." His vulnerability exposed the raw wounds of his past, yet within, the assurance of the Almighty swelled, whispering tranquility even as chaos loomed. Within the tents of Absalom's encampment, the prince caroused in apparent victory, drinking deep from the cup of rebellion. "Hasten the attack," he commanded, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "My father is a man beset by fears, a mere wraith of his former self. He shall not hold his ground against the tide of my ascendancy." The darkness within him coiled tighter as he sought to fulfill his lust for power, a passion driving him ever further from the grace of his father. Yet God's hand was not idle. As Absalom revolved with pride, David, in his hiding, turned to the Lord. With tear-stained cheeks, he lifted his laments. "O Lord, my heart cries out, save my son and heal this rift. Yet if it must be, let thy will, not mine, be done. For my soul clings to your promises, and I know that you are ever faithful." In the depths of despair rose the murmurs of hope, loyalists secretly prepared for what the dawn might unveil. As Mephibosheth prepared for the inevitable, he sensed a stirring in his spirit. Perhaps the harrowing journey would not just unfold tragedy, but reveal a providential aim. He resolved to stand steadfast, as a testament to enduring faith amidst peril, a meek heart aligned with heaven's arching design. And yet, as the dawn broke over Jerusalem, an intangible weight lingered in the air. Unbeknownst to them all, the stage was set, and the drama of God's sovereign plan was poised to reveal itself. What would the coming day bring? Would it be a day of mourning, or a day of miraculous restoration? Perhaps what lay ahead would twine together the fates of David, Absalom, and Mephibosheth in ways that none could foresee. For with God, even in the darkest shadows, the dawn of revelation awaited, whispering of unseen paths towards healing and redemption yet to unfold. The threads of this story were weaving into a tapestry of divine orchestration, one that would remind all of the mosaic of grace in the midst of chaos. As the first light of dawn unveiled the city, the air quivered with an ominous expectancy. David, away from the tumult of Jerusalem, crouched in his hidden refuge, an altar of supplication. His heart, burdened yet hopeful, cried out once more, "O Lord, let me find favor in your sight. Lead me, guide me, for I am but a vessel in need of your wisdom." At the same time, Absalom stirred, invigorated by his malice. With a fervor born of deceit, he summoned Ahithophel, his shrewd adviser. "What counsel do you have for me, the future king?" His voice dripped with ambition, betraying no hint of the treachery that lurked in his own heart. Ahithophel, cunning as a serpent, spoke, "Go to your father's concubines who are left to keep the palace. Do it publicly on the roof, that all Israel may see. This act will solidify your claim to the throne and demonstrate your break from him." Such wickedness! A shudder ran through the land, for the very foundation of loyalty was now set to tremble. All the while the loyal men of David prepared to take flight, mustering their courage for what lay ahead. "We will stand with you, O king," shouted one of the soldiers, his faith igniting hope among the weary. Mephibosheth, learning of the growing conflict, took a deep breath.
What does it mean to stand in loyalty, he pondered. Can one declare allegiance when the heart is heavy with sorrow for the past? He remembered his father Jonathan and the covenant they had shared. Could his lineage still define him amidst such strife? Yet I too am a son of David, Mephibosheth whispered, gathering his resolve.
He rose, his fragile legs carrying him forth, his spirit buoyed by the promise of Yahweh. He sought out the servants, those who had remained steadfast, and said, "We must prepare to assist our king. The time has come for action to speak louder than words." As the sun climbed higher, the distant echoes of marching armies crescendoed in Jerusalem. David's heart trembled within him, yet from the depths of despair a flicker of strength began to illuminate the shadows. What if this strife is a manifestation of greater design, he pondered. Is there purpose even in the face of betrayal? Suddenly, a messenger arrived, breathless and urgent. "Your Majesty, Absalom comes with a great host against you." A hush fell over the assembly, and David's heart sank. He was caught between love for his son and the relentless pursuit of his own safety and the integrity of his reign. "Flee, my people," David commanded with a heavy heart, acknowledging both fatherly love and kingly duty. "We shall retreat beyond the city, for we cannot face this conflict without divine assistance." In that moment, all eyes turned to the horizon, where the tension of fate drew tighter. Daughters of Zion wept silently as two destinies lingered on the brink of destruction, a son yearning for approval and a father caught in the anguish of his soul. And as the first stones were cast, God began weaving the threads of repentance and reconciliation. What would unfold in this chamber of conflict? Would David's heart break further, or would Absalom find the threads of grace even through treachery? In the turmoil of the rebellion, hope began to whisper amongst them. A longing for restoration pulsed just beneath the surface. A collective understanding started to take root within those loyal to David, an echo of their forefathers' steadfastness. "For he will make a way where there seems to be none," one of the soldiers proclaimed, recalling the ancient promises of their God. And so the stage was set, the lines drawn not just in the ground, but in the hearts of men. For beyond the clattering of swords and shields, the heartbeat of heaven reverberated in response to the cries of the faithful. What mysteries awaited in the crucible of God's grand design? Would it bring forth a reckoning or a revelation? For as surely as dawn breaks after the darkest nights, so too did hope flicker in the hearts of God's chosen, whispering of a promise yet to be fulfilled, a divine purpose unfolding in ways none could fully grasp. The tapestry of God's plan yet had to be woven with threads of both suffering and salvation, leaving them yearning for the day when reconciliation would come. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the rocky terrain, David and his loyal men placed their feet upon the path of retreat. A heavy silence enveloped them, yet within that silence lay the indomitable whisper of faith. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" David murmured, drawing strength from the ancient words of the psalmist that resonated deep within his heart. The winds, filled with a sense of urgency, carried with them the news of rising turmoil. Each soldier's face bore marks of worry and courage, reflecting the weight of their shared endeavor. In that crucible of conflict, a deep resolve knitted their spirits together, a promise of fidelity to their king and to the God who had granted him a crown. Mephibosheth, on the brink of the city, felt the shifting sands of loyalty cradle his heart. "What befalls the house of David shall not be unaccounted for. God will see to it," he declared to the servants rallying around him. Their eyes mirrored the determination burning within his breast, for they too were sons of the covenant, tied to this king marked by divine favor. Meanwhile, Absalom stood defiantly in his newly claimed throne, the crown weighing heavy on his brow. His heart pulsed with the intoxicating promise of power, yet the shadows of doubt lingered at the edges of his ambition. "Let it be known that I will not relent," he proclaimed, surveying the throngs of men gathered to him, "for this is our moment to seize the kingdom of our great father." Yet a flicker of uncertainty danced within him as he considered the depths of the actions he planned to take against his own flesh and blood. Ahithophel, sensing the turbulent tide within Absalom, leaned closer and whispered, "Strike swiftly, O king. Take to the battlefield without delay, for delay breeds hesitation, and hesitation breeds defeat." The serpent's voice slithered into Absalom's ears, igniting the flames of vengeance further in his heart, blinding him to the spiraling descent he was taking towards destruction. As night fell, David paused to gather his faithful,
raising his voice against the creeping despair that threatened their spirits. "Brothers, trust in the Lord's unfailing love," he called out amidst the flickering firelight. "He will deliver us from this day of peril, though the darkness looms heavy upon us." The air thickened with camaraderie and renewed vigor, disconnected from the very fabric of their anguish. Even as the echoes of his speech faded, his heart wrestled with fear. "Have mercy, O Lord, I implore you," David prayed fervently, his eyes lifted heavenward. "Lead my son Absalom to the path of repentance. Let him too know your grace." Tears streamed down David's weathered cheeks, each drop heavy with the weight of paternal love and sorrow that no father should bear. But just as the enemy surrounded him in the whispers of night, a flicker of divine communication crackled through the silence, as if the heavens themselves sought to intervene. God's promise, like an ember waiting to ignite, loomed nearest to those who still believed amidst the shadows of despair. A messenger hurried forth to David once more, his breath quickening in articulated gasps. "My lord."
There are those who whisper of Absalom's intent to strike at dawn, yet I hear whispers of hope, of a plan yet unseen. His eyes sparkled with the reflection of God's sovereignty seeping through the darkness. "Indeed, there lies a greater design behind this chaos," David whispered back, more to himself than anyone else. "For every purpose under heaven unfolds in its appointed time." Just then, the loyal arm of God couched around them like a protective armor forged by faith, leaving David with the weight of an impending revelation. For in the depths of their struggle lay the groundwork for restoration, thick with the promise that all things will work for the good of those who love God. And as dawn approached on the horizon, the great tapestry of his plan began to unravel, revealing that in suffering, divine providence awaited to breathe new life, a truth still veiled but yearning to be fully revealed to those who dared to hope. What unfolding narrative awaited them in the light of impending battle? Only the hand of the Almighty knew the path ahead. With the first hues of dawn painting the eastern sky, David's men stirred in restless anticipation. The chill of the night swept away, yielding to the encroaching warmth of the sun's light, a divine reminder that hope is ever present, even amid despair. David gazed upon his warriors, steady and loyal, and felt the weight of the day ahead pressing upon his spirit. "Gather, my brethren," he called. "That we shall rise not merely as your king's soldiers, but as instruments of the Lord's purposes. Let us prepare our hearts for battle, yet let us also prepare our spirits for the mercy of God." The men replied in unison, "With you, O David, we shall stand." Meanwhile, Absalom, his heart restless beneath the crown, readied his forces at the city gates. The smell of iron and anticipation thickened the air as his followers drew their weapons. "Prepare yourselves," he bellowed, his voice carrying a commanding authority that ignited fervor in the hearts of the men gathered to him. "We shall confront David and reclaim what is rightfully ours." Yet within Absalom's heart flickered the doubt that sought to unmoor him. Would this truly be the day of decisive victory? He paused and remembered the words of Ahithophel, his trusted counselor. "Victory comes with decisiveness, Absalom. Strike without thought, for the throne you seek does not wait for the hesitant." As the sun rose, a messenger sprinted towards David, winded yet fervent. "My lord, there are tidings from the watchman. Your son approaches with fierce intention." David's countenance grew solemn, sorrow creeping back into his heart. "What have I done, O Lord? Have I not raised him in your fear? Yet I must not falter, for my love for him remains, even amidst betrayal." He bowed his head in prayer, longing for wisdom to guide him.
In that moment, he recalled the prophet Nathan's words, "The Lord has established an everlasting house for you, David. Even in the storm, he shall be your refuge." Bolstered by this remembrance, he resolved to send word to his closest allies. "Go quickly and relay my command," David instructed the messenger, "that we must not yield our ground, but that should the time come for bloodshed, let it be known we do not rise against Absalom, but to protect our covenant with the Lord." As the messenger hurried away, a sense of tension draped heavily over the land, a palpable anticipation of conflict. The forces lined up on either side awaited a signal, each heartbeat an echo of divine providence weaving the very fabric of their destiny. But unknown to all, Above this theater of human frailty, the Almighty was moving. His heavenly host stood at attention, orchestrating the intricate tapestry of events that would lead to an unforeseen revelation. The hearts of men, the cries of anguish, and the fervent prayers spiraled upward like fragrant incense, intertwining with the bronze report of heaven's gates. Meanwhile, Ahithophel's cunning mind worked within Absalom's camp, calculating and plotting. "Seek an immediate confrontation, my king, for the heart of your father is troubled and ripe for defeat. I can assure you that the time is yours." Yet a whisper filled the air, a luminescent thread weaving through the chaos, a reminder that not every plan born of man's ambition aligns with heaven's decrees. The unrest beneath Absalom's seemingly unyielding resolve signaled a greater conflict yet to unfold. And as the day broke forth, a treacherous path lay before both David and Absalom, one adorned with thorns and the other with the potential for grace. Little did they know that this day's conflict would set in motion not only the destiny of a king and his rebellious son, but the fulfillment of God's promise that his steadfast love would prevail. What clearer truth would emerge from the clash? Could even betrayal become the harbinger of restoration? As the sun ascended higher in the sky, the stage was set for a divine revelation, one that would echo through generations and plant the seeds of hope amid calamity. As the sun rose higher and the anticipation of battle thickened, David's heart, though heavy with sorrow, was resolute. He stood before his men, the weight of their trust and allegiance pressing upon him like a mantle of old. "Brothers," he beckoned once more, "let us not forget the God who brought us through the trials of the wilderness, who forged us in fire to emerge as victors. Let every spear we lift today reflect the faith we hold. The Lord is our shield and protector." The cries of affirmation rose from his soldiers, echoing in the valley. "The Lord is our strength, we shall not falter." Meanwhile, Absalom surveyed his vast army, confidence painted upon his brows.
"Today," he declared, "we fight not only for a throne, but for the heart of our people, who have longed for a king who will stand and fight with them." The fervor of his words ignited a blaze in the eyes of his followers, their spirits electrified. Yet beneath it all, a tremor of uncertainty lingered in his own heart. Amidst the clamor, a war horn sounded, echoing like a clarion call across the hills. The signal had been given. Both armies took deliberate steps forward, the heavy thud of booted feet chanting an ominous rhythm of war. The very earth seemed to groan under the weight of their impending confrontation. From the heights of the hills, a watchman lifted his voice. "A great cloud of dust rises. Both sides advance." As the sound reached David, he raised his hands and called for silence. And in that sacred stillness, the fleeting breath of God whispered to him, "Fear not, for I am with you, even now." With a heart stirred by the Spirit, David recited a psalm. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." Each line echoed, uniting his men under the tender assurance of their God. As they approached one another, the darkness of division loomed like a storm overhead. Absalom rode forth, shouting against his father. "You were my king, but today I come as your adversary, for I have chosen the path of my own heart." His words pierced like arrows dipped in venom, aiming for the heart of David. David, seeing his son from a distance, was overwhelmed with despair, yet an unwavering love burned bright within him. "Absalom, my son, would that I had died instead of you." His voice rose above the din, pleading not for victory, but for reconciliation. But how often do human hearts, bent on ambition, deaf to love's cry? Absalom, consumed by his own desires, quickened his pace towards the fray, the bitterness of rebellion guiding his hand as he commanded his warriors to clash at once. And so the two armies met, a thunderous roar of iron and cries of anguish intermingling. The air was thick with the reverberations of flesh against flesh as David's men fought valiantly to defend their covenant, while Absalom's determined forces sought to dethrone him, each believing their cause just. Amidst the chaos, a solitary figure emerged, the fateful hand of God at work. A man of valor feared not to intervene. Joab, commander of David's army, saw the tumult and with fierce resolve charged through the fray. "Let us not stain the ground with familial blood," he shouted, hoping to stem the violence. Yet heaven wept, for destiny intertwined the threads of their lives in ways unseen. As the battle raged, every clash of sword and armor,
Every heart in turmoil was a plea unto the heavens, pleading for divine perspective amid impending tragedy. The stage was set for a confrontation not just between father and son, but between the brokenness of sin and the relentless pursuit of grace.
Unbeknownst to them, this day was a precursor to something beyond comprehension, an unfolding of God's sovereign tapestry, where pain would be transformed into purpose, and despair might lead to a revelation that would echo through the ages. What hidden gem of redemption waits in the shadow of conflict? How will love prevail amidst the crossfire of ambition and anguish? As the dust rose higher and the cries grew both weary and fierce, the heavens remained watchful, ready to unveil a divine twist that would ultimately define the legacy of both David and Absalom. As the sun rose on the aftermath of battle, the dust settled heavy upon the fields that had bore witness to anguish and strife. King David, weary yet resolute, sought the faces of his loyal men among the remnants of sorrow. The grief in his heart ran deeper than any warrior's wound. It was the anguish of a father mourning the loss of his beloved son, Absalom, whose rebellion had cost him not just a crown, but also the life of one whom he had cherished with unyielding love. "Bring me word of my son," David cried, each word laced with a profound tragedy that echoed against the bruised landscape. His own heart bore the weight of that love mixed with loss. The haunt of his sorrow crept into every corner of the land, suffusing all who had fought and suffered that day. Yet in the quiet shadows of the encampment, Mephibosheth heard the news. Confusion snared him, for though he himself had once been crowned a son of David at the king's table, the revelations of the day shook him to the core. "What shall we do now?" he pondered. "How can I bear to witness the unraveling of a family torn apart by betrayal, as I once feared my own lineage?" With a spirit emboldened by grace, he turned to Ziba, his faithful servant. "We must rebuild. Our duty is not merely to remain hidden, but to help our king find solace amid despair." And so, together, they soared forward, encouraged by the hope that flourished in the soil of tragedy, feeling the pulse of divine purpose propelling them towards reconciliation. News soon reached David of Absalom's fate, and his heart erupted in sorrow, reverberating through the land as a tempest. "Oh, Absalom, my son, would that I had died instead of you," he cried with a voice that quivered, racked by the pain of a love unreciprocated, as if the very foundations of his soul trembled under the weight of grief. Yet amidst the ebb and flow of agony, an answer began to illuminate the shadows. God's divine orchestration had not been forsaken, for in this valley of death arose the stark possibility of life, the promise of restoration that would extend even to the wounds opened by betrayal. The elders of Israel convened, and the murmurs of unity began to weave throughout the land. "Let us not forget the covenant made with the house of David," they declared, their voices steeped in resolve.
"Let us show kindness to the house of his son Jonathan, not just in honor of the past, but to pave the way for a healing future." Thus the kingdom began to blossom anew, with flourishes of grace portraying life's resilience. King David, in a fit of mournful clarity, summoned Mephibosheth to his presence. "Your land, your father's legacy, is restored to you," he proclaimed, enshrined with the authority of unfathomable grace. "You shall eat at my table once more as my son." As Mephibosheth knelt before the king, tears cascading down his cheeks mingled with gratitude and awe. "What is your servant, that you should look upon a dead dog such as I?" he whispered, his heart straining against the magnitude of mercy poured out upon him. The echoes of isolated despair fell away, replaced by the warmth of belonging and love. "No longer shall you live in the shadows," David replied, "for the grace of God has brought us together in this day. Let us learn from the tribulations of the past to embrace the love of now, for even amidst sorrow, hope arises. As fellowship blossomed, the kingdom began to heal, and the people of Israel rejoiced under the leadership of David, who reflected the heart of the Father, a heart that beats for restoration and reconciliation. Emmanuel remained their guiding light, reminding each person of the invincible truth that in suffering, new beginnings emerge. Thus, from the ashes of rebellion, God forged a narrative of redemption, which charted the path from despair to hope. And as the echoes of the past intertwined with the promise of the future, the legacy of Mephibosheth grew, rooted in the ever-sustaining love of God. Now I urge you, beloved friends, as we conclude this miraculous testament of God's faithfulness, to embrace His promises without delay. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and to witness more powerful biblical stories that can transform lives. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, reaching more souls in need. Comment your deepest spiritual reflections and share how this biblical story has impacted your own faith journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth and experience the hope that comes from Him. Together, let us spread the light of His grace.